What's up, YouTube? This is your host, Kian Sabani. I'm feeling pretty generous today. So what I've done is I put together two clips from two different podcasts, and I'm sharing them with you today. So part one of this is about Brahim Diaz and Alvaro Odriozola and how they're doing, and particularly against Juve and Calgary, respectively, and how they played over the weekend. If you're interested in having your pulse on Real Madrid's loanees constantly, and not just having like an annual report on how they're doing, we actually watch every single Real Madrid loanee player play across various leagues, and once a week we bring them on the podcast and we share our notes about them. So the stats, the eye test analysis, how they're doing, the context of their performance, and whether Real Madrid should bring them back one day or not, what we should do with them. We do this every single week, so we really know, and partly because we want to know, because we can analyze it when the time comes during the transfer window and people ask us questions about it. We want to have an informed opinion about it. So that's partly why we do it, but we also do it for you. So we know that a lot of you want to know more about the loanees, but you don't have time to be nerds like us and watch Fiorentina and Milan and Cadiz. My God, Cadiz is so boring to watch. So we do that for you, and we share our notes with you. So that's over on patreon.com/managingmadrid. $3 gets you access to not only that, but everything we do on Patreon, the Zoom podcast after a Champions League big night, the mailbag with Lucas, and so much more. So go inside patreon.com/managingmadrid, and we'll give you a big virtual hug. We'll welcome you into the Real Madrid family. Part two of this podcast actually stems from the Elche postgame, where Ancelotti was talking about how the fact that we just need to fix injury time. It's never accurate. And even if you get a decent amount, it's just filled with antics, time wasting, and you never actually get to play it out fully. So Omar and I talk about that, and that's from the Elche postgame podcast. So I've just compiled this. I just wanted to share some stuff with you guys. I have a backlog of things that I wanted to share, and truth be told, I can't share everything. It's impossible. So if you want to not miss anything, go over and subscribe on your podcast app. And also, reminder, for those of you anywhere close to America's nation's capital, we are coming to Washington, D.C. in March, and early bird tickets for that end this month. So February 1st, the prices go up. I've included a link in the show notes to the Washington, D.C. podcast, as well as the London podcast, which is happening in a couple weeks. We're very excited about that. And once again, thank you so much for those of you who came out to Miami last week. That was amazing. Thank you to Andres Cordero, who helped me answer questions from Real Madrid fans. It was a pleasure to meet you all. And again, D.C. prices go up February 1st. And it's a win-win. If you book, you save money, and it also helps us plan logistics for the podcast. So no-brainer. If you're going to attend, making the drive up, make sure to get your tickets before this month ends. All right, enough me blabbering. Enjoy today's clip. All right, welcome to the Managing Madrid podcast. It is Wednesday night, not Tuesday night, a day late for the Loan Tracker, but we are here nonetheless. A little bit lucky that the schedule is a little bit easier to deal with right now. There's not too much on the footballing schedule. Even the international break is not too crazy. We just have some South American stuff. We have the African Cup of Nations, of course, which has been ongoing, and a lot of drama there. Shout out to Achraf Hakimi, who scored an incredible goal yesterday from a free kick. But we are here to discuss all of Real Madrid's loanees, and also stick around for part two. Arvin has a special guest on Las Blancas that's coming up. So that's a quick, I think, 10 or 11-minute segment coming up in part two that's worth sticking around for. Matt Wiltsey is here. Matt, how are you?
Hey, Keon, doing well. Yeah, we're not on our usual Tuesday, but Wednesday will still work. Obviously, we've got the international break, or like, I don't know. I guess I guess you could call it like a half international break, since it's really only the South Americans. But it's gonna be weird without that much football this upcoming week.
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm so weird. I'm thankful. That's not weird for me at all, man. I can focus on some other stuff, maybe get some sunshine, maybe get some exercise in, all that stuff that I can never have time to do. All right, so we had quite an eventful week for loanees, truth be told. I mean, luckily we didn't have like 2 games for each player. I think we only had 1 game per player, and all those games were pretty jam-packed. So why don't we start with let's start with AC Milan versus Juventus. I mean, that seems like a reasonable place to start. It's a big game in Italy. And we had Brahim Diaz play as the 10. And I thought this was, while it wasn't one of Brahim's, let's say, better performances, I didn't think. I did think it was eventful for him. Like I just have a lot of things to say about him that I'm interested to explore further with you. So what was your, I guess, like, what was your reaction watching him play in this 10 role in such a big game?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it was I don't think it was one of those performances where we come away saying, "Oh, he's just so off the mark. He doesn't look like himself. He's just it's not the Brahim we knew early in the season." But that being said, he wasn't like electric and everywhere and one of the best players on the pitch. I wouldn't say that. I just think he was probably a little bit more involved than usual. And actually, I thought defensively we got to see the best of him again. He was pressing really well, hounding. He won the ball back quite a bit high up the field. And I even remember Dre Cordero commenting on it during the game, being like, wow, Brahim's won it back again. And so I think it was good to see that part of his game come back because we had just talked about that last week, how we weren't sure, like, is he being asked to do this or is this post-COVID? He's just not, his defensive numbers aren't what they were. And in this game against Juve, he looked the part defensively. Offensively, like I thought he always, what I really like about Brahim is he always finds the right spaces. Like he gets in between the lines. He's always available for a pass, whether or not his teammates find him or play him is a different question. But he really does a great job of finding the right spaces in between the lines. And then there was one moment I think of like early on in the first half where Rafael Leao, who I've been really impressed with this season. I feel like I talk about him every time I talk about AC Milan, and he's developed quite a bit. Him and Tonali have really stepped up this year. And he went on one of his mazy runs and had a shot that was parried by Chesney, and Brahim was like this close to picking up the rebound and would have gotten the goal. And that's kind of to the point we always talked about early in the season, his goal scoring instincts. Like he was right there, a predator in the box, ready to pounce on that rebound, but just didn't pan out for him.
I agree on this defense. I liked his defense. Apart from like a couple times I thought like while his pressing was good and his tracking was good, he was a little bit overly aggressive on certain plays. Like he made some crazy bailout fouls where, you know, Juve players like Locatelli was in a couple of those. Dybala was in one of them where they were being pressed, they weren't going anywhere, and Brahim just takes their legs out. But I thought, yeah, defensively he worked hard. I think, like, and I agree, his movement between the lines has always been good, and it was good in this game too. One thing that's been kind of annoying me lately, and I've started to notice this as a trend, and I especially noticed at this game. This game, I felt like I really like every game, every play almost, it was driving me nuts, is that he's a 10. So primarily your function as a 10 is you need to be an outlet, and you need to be constantly roaming and make sure your team always has an escape route. You need to make sure that you can provide something for your team to hit on, like as an outlet between the lines, which he can do, which he does well. But I also find that sometimes he shies away and is disconnected from the play where his team needs him there more. Like think of like how Isco played in the diamond role, that, you know, he was always there when we needed him, like all over the field. There was one moment in transition in this game where in the first half where he gets the ball on the halfway line and Zlatan is like just a few meters from him. Like he's very close. And in front of them two, there's like 30, 40 yards of space they can run into because it's a counterattack. There's space. There's no one heavily marking them. And what Brahim does is instead of carrying the ball himself, he passes it short to Zlatan and then sprints into the box. And now Zlatan is all of a sudden this deep-lying playmaker with the ball at his feet when it should have been the opposite. You know what I mean? And then Zlatan just gives it away. And I think like there's a lot of times because he's playing closer to goal this season, there's a lot of times where he's just in the box, you know, waiting for a cross to come. And I just don't see that being his game. You know, I don't see that. I don't see him taking advantage in that situation. Like if I'm Milan pumping crosses into Brahim, I just don't understand why. Like I would rather him have the ball at his feet more and be the one pulling the strings and doing the playmaking from that deeper role than have him just in the box being wasted.
So you're telling me a game plan of hitting 5'4" Brahim with crosses isn't your go-to?
Nah, you might as well be putting Odriozola in there or something. It's useless. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I've actually noticed that too. He is in the box and like literally just standing in the box sometimes, just waiting for crosses. It makes no sense. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's because AC Milan adapted their play a little. Because I felt like wasn't happening that much in the beginning of the season. It's more now since he's come back, and maybe it's because AC Milan adapted their play while he was out, and he's coming back into the side, and that's kind of the role he's found himself in. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that's just a hypothesis. But other than that, like I don't know. What'd you make of this game? I didn't think. I thought it was so. Like I was kind of excited for it because the like Juventus is obviously battling to stay in the top four. AC Milan sort of still in the title race. So it was a really like important match, and I don't know. I expected a little bit more from it. Juventus just I think they're much better tactically now under Allegri. Like it's taken him 6 months into the season to get them disciplined tactically, but they just have nothing going forward, like no creativity.
Yeah, my reaction was as I was just super underwhelmed and unimpressed with anything that was really happening. Like
Yeah.
I like Rafael Leao, like you said. I actually like De Sciglio too on that right back role. I thought he did well defensively, against Leao overall and just in general. But um,
I
I
liked
just
I
yeah.
liked Matteo Bonetti being like, "This is not your father's Matteo Di Ciglio. He's a whole new attacking right back."
I didn't watch this one live, so I didn't get the benefit of the
uh,
Cordero but Bonetti crew. I got I don't even know who I had, but I didn't have them. But oh yeah, I was just saying like I just feel like there wasn't much talent like to watch like on Juve. Like you
yeah,
have your
yeah.
Dybalas, like you have like these random okay attacking pieces like Quadrado, who is like just a good, I guess, attacking player who can do some stuff, but
Yeah,
he's a
too
little
old
bit
now.
brain dead at times and just makes these weird decisions and is terrible defensively. Um, like what happened in this game? I'm trying to even think like what.
It wasn't that eventful of a game. It really wasn't. Like there just wasn't that much that happened on either end of the pitch.
Like I don't remember a big chance.
The only one I remember is that Brahim potential rebound from a Rafael Leao shot, and that's what I had in my notes. But other than
Right.
that, it was
I'm looking
quiet.
at the XG right now. Juve had an XG of 0.35. They did literally
Jesus.
nothing. It's like so. I'm not just
What was
misremembering things.
AC Milan's?
0.71. Not
Okay.
that
Yeah,
much
I mean
better.
it tells you the story. We're not exaggerating here. Like it really was
Well, the weird
not.
thing is that it did feel like there was a lot of back and forth and open space, but they just seemed like there wasn't many good chances.
Yeah.
Again, maybe it was just bad football. It wasn't like peak Milan Juve. Um, anything else from this game, or you want to talk about Odriozola?
Yeah, let's go with Odriozola.
Um, okay, so another one I watched tape delay. I finished watching it last night, and when you look at the box score, you're like, "Oh shit, this is going to be a bad one." It's Odriozola has no noteworthy statistics and a red card. And you're like, "Oh wow, this is a bad game." But then I watched it, and I'm like, "Wow, you know what? It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be." And when I saw the red card, I was so tempted to send you a message and be like, just what the hell was that? And I didn't. I was like, I'm going to save it for the podcast. I'm not going to talk with Matt about this beforehand. I want to save it for the podcast. I didn't understand for the life of me why that was a red card. Every replay that I saw, I didn't even see his hand connect with the ball. I saw him getting pushed. Maybe I didn't see the right replay. And if I did miss it, red card just seems incredibly harsh.
Yeah, I'm watching it right now,
Okay.
and I watched it before we got on again, and my initial reaction was just soft, really soft,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at it now again with like a zoomed in view. I don't think his hand touches it at all. He gets pushed too. He
Also,
gets
if his hand
bodied.
does connect with it, is he even like?
It's not his fault.
Because like to him to get a red card in that situation, it would mean that he's like deliberately swinging his right arm to connect with the ball.
Yeah.
But I don't like. I think my commentator on that feed actually at one point was like, "Oh well, he swings his right arm," and like does he really? Are you sure about that? Or is he getting pushed? Like, I don't think he has any idea what's going on to like.
Yeah. So it's a handball apparently in the box, and Calgary missed the PK. And
Yeah,
there's actually two PKs missed in this game, and Odriozola earned the first PK
that's right.
with one of his mazy runs into the box, or latching onto a ball with a good run into the box, and he just gets bodied, and that was a clear PK. But Vlahovic did not play this game, and so he didn't take the PK. They missed it, and but Odriozola just like really involved in everything, because on the goal that Calgary actually scored on the set piece, was that Odriozola's man? It was kind of hard to tell.
João Pedro, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
He just has no chance of like it's like an ant going up versus Thanos. Like there's no, he has zero. I mean, even like right before his red card, he's it's João Pedro again in that challenge, and like so is João Pedro who pushes him into the phantom handball or whatever. But then like seconds before that, they also have a duel against each other in the box, and Odriozola gets brushed aside and loses it in the box because he's just so weak to physically. And that's one aspect of his game that it has to improve somehow. I mean, he's past, he's like 26 now, so like I don't know if that's going to improve. But from a pure offensive perspective, like I mean that the penalty he earned, that's just a really good example of what he can bring offensively, because he gets to that with his pace. Like that's one thing I remember that Real Sociedad was, you can overhit through balls to him and that's okay because he can get it. Like it's better to put a little bit more pace on the ball to somebody like him than it is to underhit it because he can catch up to it. This wasn't necessarily that, but like the fact that he can just round his marker that quick and get to the through ball, I mean, that it's a really, really dangerous weapon. And I thought like his overlaps generally were pretty good. Like his speed on the overlap was what won that penalty essentially to me. And he had a few of those overlaps where he just comes out of nowhere, like really impressively, and it's just a huge relief valve for his team because they're in attack, they have no options, and Odriozola flies to the screen, and he's all of a sudden the final third, and they're able to find something. I also thought his pressing was pretty good in this. Like Fiorentina did this thing where they would force Calgary out wide, and as soon as the ball went there, Odriozola would sprint and pressure the ball carrier, and usually they would win possession off of something like that. So, behind the ball, he's generally pretty good. He's just physically weak. I mean, that's his biggest thing defensively, that he can't. It's not something you can teach or really improve on unless you just get stronger. But yeah, I guess my point is like this game wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be by just looking at the numbers. Yeah. And the red card.
I think at this point of the season, like the sample size is large enough now that we've seen enough consistent Odriozola matches to say he's definitely better than we thought, or maybe getting back to that Real Sociedad level in terms of his offensive contribution and the runs he's making off the ball, his positioning off the ball, and just being an outlet and being quicker when he makes decisions on the ball. So like all of that has been a positive, and I think we've been actually probably surprised at how well he's done offensively there in Italy. But defensively, we still, I mean, I don't think there's been a podcast where we've been like, yes, he was on point defensively, especially 1v1, because whether it be him getting physically manhandled or just tossed and turned or twisted and turned 1v1, it happens too often. Or he just has like these weird, like either missed a header or a back pass that goes awry or something like that, and he's had a lot of those throughout the season. So I think the sample size is there, and I think we know what he's good at and what he's poor at, and unless he makes a dramatic turnaround, we've seen what we have in Odriozola.
By the way, Vlahovic on his way to Juve. It's gonna be a big loss. Big loss if you're.
Yeah, Dre was seemed pretty high on him when you guys were in Miami.
Yeah. I think I don't know who was saying it. I think I have the quote here.
He reminds me. I said at the beginning of the season, Vlahovic kind of reminds me of Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Mm-hmm.
like a younger Ruud van Nistelrooy.
It's a good one. Um, there was an interesting quote from Italy's ex prime minister. He's a Fiorentina fan, huge Fiorentina fan, pretty famous. He said that like it's like a day of mourning in Florence because like he said it was comparable to like when he was 15 and Baggio was sold to Juve, and there was protests in the streets and like just frustration of like why Juve of all teams, like can we sell him somewhere else at least? Like it's a huge loss. I mean, you can definitely sense the drop from him to Piatek, you know, in this game. Van Nistelrooy is a good comp though. I like that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if I actually think like staying in Serie A was probably the right move for him because I don't know. I feel like he's adapted to that league. Like Arsenal move could have been way more risky. So I think his
more fun
his
though.
Skills,
I feel like it had potential to be pretty fun though with Odegaard there and Smith Rowe.
Yeah.
I had a question for you. Ancelotti after the game was asked about like his thoughts about like injury time and you know whether we got the timing right and injury time in general, and he said that he didn't really comment on it about it today, but he just said like whatever the case, we need to figure out a universal like mathematical equation that gives everyone across the board the exact amount of injury time we're supposed to get. Because it was that whole thing with like a minute or two to go where I think it was maybe Mojica who just basically pretended to die on the field and then like minutes passed and there was like one more minute added, but that didn't really amount to anything. Where do you stand on like injury time in general? Do you feel like there's a better system out there that we haven't used yet?
I think we could always add more injury time. I think refs tend to be too conservative with it. The problem is like when you actually count up the minutes that are lost to out of play stuff, and there have been studies done on this, it's like 30 minutes and over.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. So one of the suggestions which FIFA brought up, I think, and like the reaction to it was not good as expected, was stopping the clock every time the ball goes out of play and changing to 30-minute halves. So basically you would still have the ball in play the same amount of time that you do. It's just that like time wasting is thrown out of the picture, basically. Like you can't take more than that. And that honestly is the most comprehensive solution. I've been like really sympathetic to that idea for a while because like it's just a pet peeve of mine. Like I really don't like time wasting. I don't see what it adds to the game. People argue that it's a tactic for smaller teams. Like I don't care, to be quite honest. Like I think there are better. Like I don't think it bridges the difference that much. If we're talking about like making football better for smaller teams, then we're having a conversation about changing the way like the entire structure of football is as a whole. I don't think like time wasting really is making up the gap there. But the issue becomes is like the possibility of sticking ad time in there. And if like it ever leads to that, like I'll just deal with this bullshit for the rest of my life because that would genuinely ruin football. So like I guess that's where I stand on it.
I don't understand the pushback against that system. I think it makes the most sense. I don't understand why anyone would not like to try 30-minute halves with a stop-start thing. Is it because like people have this?
Well, it changes the look of football like so much,
but
right?
nothing nothing negatively. It cleans up the antics, the time wasting. It gets you a more fair result based on like we're not getting the amount of injury time we're supposed to get anyway. I have zero. There's not even like it's not even a debate to me. Like we got to try this. We have to.
I would welcome it, but it's not popular, and I wouldn't be surprised if we got some people disagreeing with what we say here. But I do kind of understand in this.
Bring them to the podcast. Who's disagreeing with this? Who are these people?
Yeah, Kian has yet to experience these people, so go add him on Twitter so he can see who they are. I don't think he understands, but yeah, I'm with you. But if it does lead to more ad time, that's where it's a hard no for me because like I can't deal with like NFL style stuff. Like people like
Yeah, I
over
wouldn't do that NFL
romanticize.
style
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, like people over romanticize football compared to other sports. But like one thing that's just truly better about it than any other sport is the fact that it's just continuous. And until halftime, you're only watching what's happening on the pitch, in my opinion.
Could you imagine like we started to have like buzzer beaters in football, where it's like, imagine if like the Ramos header was like, the clock would stop at 90. Let's say if that was just a buzzer beater, and they were like reviewing it. Did he get off the header in time? Did the red light go off? I mean, there's no harm in seeing it, guys. Like, I think we should at least try it. Like, if it doesn't work, it's a disaster. We just go back. What's the big deal? I think it's definitely worth a try.